The Woodpecker's Warning. Sibel's first performance took place at the last dinner of the Squirrels' Convention. Everyone loved her. She didn't sing just one song, she sang many. Even after the squirrels left, she kept singing every night. Mona was happy to see her grow more confident. It made her feel more confident, too. She had made a friend in Sibel and in the Sudsburys, who were always requesting her help. But Tilly was still far from friendly, at least to Mona. She did see Tilly bring soup and handkerchiefs to Mrs. Higgins for her cold, and even hot honey to Sibel after a long night of singing. So why did the red squirrel treat Mona differently? She wanted to ask, to know why Tilly behaved the way she did, but they were so busy. There was never time. There was always something going on at the Heartwood Hotel. Mona was in the middle of cleaning Sibel's new room, which was now her job despite Tilly's protests, when she heard the noise. The sound came again. Was it a woodpecker? There was a woodpecker, Tony, on staff, but Mona had never properly met him. He was always quick to leave after meals. She hurried to the shutters and pushed them open. But before she could step out onto the balcony, Tony the woodpecker swooped from a top branch and, spying her, cried, "Alarm! Alarm! Didn't you hear it? Inside! Inside at once!" Then he clung to the trunk and pounded his beak into it again. Mona's heart pounded too as she hurried out into the hall, where she ran into Tilly. The squirrel was frantic. "It's the alarm! Quick, quick! We need to gather in the dining hall." Mona followed Tilly down the stairs, wondering what could be going on. "Mr. Heartwood will take care of it," Mona tried to reassure herself. But in the dining hall, Mr. Heartwood looked as concerned and unsure of what to do as everyone else. Lunch had clearly been interrupted. Plates of food lay half-eaten or untouched on the round tables. No one seemed hungry anymore, except one shrew, who was gobbling up plateful after plateful in a nervous state. Most of the staff had gathered on one side of the room, while on the other side, the guests huddled, including Sibel and the Sudsburys. The swallow looked frightened, and Lord Sudsbury was sitting on a chair taking deep breaths, while Lady Sudsbury rubbed his shoulders. Miss Prickles was looking after them, offering tea and soothing words. She was clearly upset, too, despite her demeanor, because her quills were raised and she almost poked a guest. "I thought this was a safe place," moaned Lord Sudsbury loudly. "Yes, so did I," added a chipmunk. Others joined in the cry, and Mr. Heartwood, hearing this, strode onto the stage. "Please, dear guests, stay calm. There's nothing to fear as long as the staff of the Heartwood are here. We will keep you safe." Then he gestured to Sibel. Perhaps some soothing tunes would help calm everyone's nerves. Sibel took her place on stage again and began to sing, but for once her voice wobbled. Mr. Heartwood had returned to muttering and pacing back and forth in front of the staff when the woodpecker swooped in through the doors. He landed next to the badger. The guests looked over questioningly. "Did everyone hear? Is everyone here?" the woodpecker said loudly. His crown of red feathers was ruffled, and there were wood chips caught in the feathers on his chest. "Hush," said Mr. Heartwood. "No need to further alarm anyone. Now tell me at once, quietly, what is going on?" Mr. Heartwood's voice was neither poetic nor poised. The woodpecker darted his head side to side, at last saying in punctuated but almost whispered words, "It's a bear! A bear, Mr. Heartwood! A great big one! It came right up the path, just as you please." "A bear?" Mr. Heartwood exclaimed. "A bear! And what is it doing now, Tony?" "It's at the front door. Yes, it's at the front door trying to get in. It hasn't found the hidden lock, but it could at any moment." Maggie and Maurice, the rabbits, threw their paws around each other. Tilly moaned, "Oh, oh, oh," while Mrs. Higgins said sharply, "But it's late fall. Bears should be ready for sleeping." Mr. Heartwood nodded to Mrs. Higgins. "Indeed! What in blithering brambles is he doing here? Tony, your post is the most important of the jobs in this hotel. What were you doing? Were you at rest? You know you cannot. You must protect the guests. Mona had never seen Mr. Heartwood so angry at any of the staff before. Tony looked very upset. I stammered Tony, but Mr. Heartwood was still furious. He huffed. Now see the situation we are in. Why, I don't know where to begin. He tugged his whiskers mightily. No respect whatsoever, said Jill, and it took Mona a moment to realize he was talking about the bear. Doesn't he know where he is? We'll have to do something soon, said Mrs. Higgins. Or Lord Sudsbury. Well, you know. She glanced over at Lord Sudsbury, whose tail was beginning to shake. But Mrs. Higgins, can't we just get rid of him? Cried Tilly. She was trembling, she was so frightened. Don't worry, dearie. There, Miss Prickles comforted, having joined them. She started to say something else to Tilly, but Mona didn't hear, for Maggie, one of the laundry rabbits, burst out. We can launch an attack from the second floor windows. We can throw pots and pans. Those are heavy. I have shears, said Mr. Higgins. Decorum, said Mr. Heartwood. Decorum, everyone. Attack? Do intelligence we lack? We are the Heartwood. We must think of a different plan. We run by rules. We must use these as our tools. His rhyme came in a stammer, which was unlike him. As the animals clustered and began to discuss, Mona wondered about what Jill had said about the bear not knowing where he was. Maybe, thought Mona, this bear really doesn't know where he is. Everyone thought he was trying to get into the hotel to attack them, but maybe something else was going on. She remembered the bear's den she had come across during the big storm. It did look a bit like the Heartwood. Could that den be what the bear was looking for? Mona had to find out quickly before something bad happened. If the animals attacked him, he would get mad. A mad bear was far different from a bumbling, confused one. She quickly scurried from the crowd. She had almost reached the dining hall door when Tilly saw her. Where are you going? She asked, her eyes wide. I'm going to see the bear. I think he might be lost. You're what? Said Tilly. You have to stay here. Those are the rules. Besides, it's a bear. You can't just... But I can, replied Mona, and I'm going to. For the first time, Mona ignored Tilly, to Tilly's great annoyance, and headed bravely into the lobby to face the great bear. Chapter 10, Brumble the Bear. The lobby was empty and quiet except for the booming thump, thump, thump coming from the door as the bear pushed his shoulder against it over and over. Brave as she might have felt before, now that she was alone and facing the thumping, Mona began to tremble. She took a deep breath to slow her racing heart and marched up to the entrance. When there was a pause in the thumping, she carefully opened the door a crack and slipped out, quickly closing it behind her. A mountain of black rose up in front of her. The bear was not only gigantic, but also very old. Mona could tell from the silvery streaks in his fur. He smelled like years of fish and dusty dens. He gazed left and right, then back to the Heartwood. Shucks! It's just not here, he grumbled. His voice was gravelly and sounded ready for rest. He seemed confused. Could she be right? Was he lost? Mona had to ask him. She cleared her throat as loudly as she could, trying to get his attention. Mr. Bear, excuse me. But the bear didn't hear her, or even seem to see her, not even when he pushed on the hotel door with his snout, just missing the heart by inches. Mona jumped out of the way to avoid being crushed. The bear thwacked his nose hard, and the force of it caused him to fall back on his haunches. Shucks, he said again in his deep, tired voice. Mona tried again, a lot louder. Oh, Mr. Bear, she shouted. Still no luck. So she pulled a seed cake left over from breakfast from her apron pocket and threw it up at him. She had not expected her aim to be so good. It hit him right on his nose. Hey! The bear swatted at his nose with his paw, then looked down to see where the cake had come from. He spied Mona. "I'm sorry," she said. "Huh?" he replied, blinking at her. "I'm sorry," she repeated loudly. "For what?" "For the..." Mona shook her head. "Oh, never mind." She cleared her throat again. "Mr. Bear," she began. "Brumble's the name," he said. "Mr. Brumble, I think you've come to the wrong place." "Oh, shucks. I wondered why there was a door. I'm looking." He gave a mighty yawn. "Looking for your winter den?" finished Mona. "My den?" said the bear, surprised. "It's here?" "No," said Mona. "This is a hotel." "Hotel?" Brumble looked up at the giant tree and shook his head in astonishment. "Fancy that." "I'm afraid we don't have rooms large enough for bears," Mona said. "There is a den," she added, "upstream a ways. Maybe it's yours." "Ah," Brumble smiled. "That must be it. My memory's just not..." He rubbed his nose with his paw and gave another yawn. "We all forget things," said Mona. "Don't worry." "Thank you kindly." His eyelids began to droop. "Do you want to go there?" said Mona. Brumble's eyes snapped open. "Go where?" "To your den." "Oh, yes, of course. Which way did you say it was?" "Just upstream," said Mona. "Ah, good. Better get going then. There's nothing like home. Just got to find it." And with that and another rumbling yawn, Brumble awkwardly pushed himself back up, squishing mushroom lanterns in the process, and turned around and rambled downstream. "Wait!" cried Mona. "You're going the wrong way." Brumble stopped and shook his head. "Shucks." He gave another yawn and turned around. What if he got lost again, or fell asleep on the way to his den? Mona made a quick decision. "Mr. Brumble, I can come with you if you'd like and show you the way." "You'd do that?" Mona nodded. "Gosh, you sure are nice." It didn't take long to reach the bear's den. Although at first Mona was very scared, Brumble insisted she ride on his back. And so she did, clinging to his fur and listening to him yawn and ramble. As it turned out, this den wasn't his usual one, and that was part of the reason he was lost. Just as he was beginning his winter sleep, he had been woken up by howling wolves. They were so noisy they kept him up, so he decided to move to his childhood den instead. Wolves again, thought Mona. They really were in Fernwood Forest. When they reached the enormous tree, Brumble sighed happily. Mona slid down off his back and watched as he wiggled himself through the opening. It was a tight fit for him now, but she imagined it wouldn't have been when he was a cub. "If you are ever in need of a Brumble, you'll know where to find me," he said to her from inside the den, his voice muffled. His black tail disappeared into the darkness. "Home," he said. "There's nowhere like home." And then came a yawn and snoring. Brumble's words echoed in Mona's mind as she hurried back to the Heartwood. By the time Mona returned, slipping under blackberry vines and in through the garden door, the hotel seemed to be back to normal. No alarms or terrified guests, only the sound of Sibel's sweet voice drifting from the ballroom. She headed downstairs hoping to find Mr. Heartwood. She wanted to tell him what Brumble had said about the wolves. Instead, she found Tilly in the kitchen, poking her paw into an acorn souffle. Tilly's tail was bristled up and her paws seemed to be shaking. The squirrel looked up at Mona, gulped down her bite and snapped, "Where have you been? Were you hiding? Well, it's about time you came back. We have to get the dining hall ready. Mr. Heartwood is throwing a special dinner for the guests to make up for this morning. The bear is gone." "I know," said Mona proudly. "I wasn't hiding. I was the one who took him home. And he told me something too. I need to talk to Mr. Heartwood. Tilly's eyes grew wide. Then they narrowed. I wouldn't talk to Mr. Heartwood if I were you. You shouldn't have left your post. That's a rule. But I was helping the bear, said Mona. And now you need to help me, said Tilly. Come on, we have work to do. Mona hesitated. But Brumble had moved closer to the Heartwood to get away from the wolves, so that meant they were still a long way away. Too far from the hotel to cause trouble. At least, that's what she hoped.